What's going on? So, hey, I'm Greg. That's Mira. She's going to tell me about the WPS
Yeah,
and about how super feminism is the best thing ever. And why not? I agree. What
I
do we need to
was
talk about?
I wasn't talking about this. I mean, we will talk about this too, but that wasn't my objective. So the objective was just to talk about something interesting in the news recently. And
Definitely.
when I saw the tweet, no, the tweet, I don't know how to call it, like
Oh,
the
the X tweet, yeah.
the X tweet.
From I don't know what it's
Uh,
called either. You're right. From Pete Hegseth, I'm pretty sure
yeah,
you're talking about
yes.
because
Uh,
he's a bad man according.
I didn't I didn't say that at all. I mean, my opinions about him are strictly personal. Uh,
Personal. Oh wow.
yeah, no, in the sense of I don't know him to say it's a bad man or a good man, but I don't like some of his ideas.
Ah,
So,
I see.
professional ideas, let's say, and especially what he was writing about getting rid of the of WPS program in the US, um, accusing it that it is woke, left-wing, and feminist document. Well, I would be the happiest of the world if this document was a left-wing and a feminist and a woke document, but I'm not sure it is.
Well, say
So
those three things again, please. You wish that the WPS was what, and what?
a left wing, a feminist, and a woke document.
You
But
wish
it
it
is
was left
not.
wing,
Yes.
you wish it was feminist, and you wish it was what?
Woke?
Like, like you cook the Asian. What do you what's the word you're saying? Woke?
Like your walk, yeah. The walk
Oh,
that you say all the time. You,
woke?
and when I say you, it's the US, not you as Greg.
So
So,
your preference is that the
yeah.
document be left wing, feminist. Again, we're talking about the WPS and
Yes.
woke. You actually want something to be quote unquote woke. That's that's good. I'm glad we have that admission out. That's what you
We
want.
have had it. Yes, of
Okay.
course. I
I
mean,
didn't know you were openly woke. I thought that you were a closet woke.
I don't think that work is a bad thing, so I'm not. Mm.
Okay. All right.
So then let's define what work means. So because the symbolics that are related to a word, that's the most important thing. And I know that
I
you
mean, we
know,
might have to come back to that. Well, let's just talk about Pete
yeah,
Hegseth and the WPS
yeah.
because so I was reading through this and I don't know what your position on it is, honestly. You told me that what is your position on it? How about that?
So should I start just from the history of the document, or maybe it would make it clear?
Well, I was gonna, I guess we could look at it two ways, from the history and go forward, or I'm kind of looking at the most current document because it means the most to me right now, I guess. It means the most to how it's actually being applied right now and work backwards. Either way is fine, but maybe not jumping around because that gets confusing. Okay.
Uh, No, I was just thinking that saying that this is a global document in the sense of it was it started in 2000 as a resolution of the UN Security Council, and that it was called it's the 1325, so the number of the resolution, and it was called Women, Peace and Security.
Mm.
And so it was the first one, like the first document focused on women, peace, and security. And then after some years, together with nine other resolutions that were also related to gender and sexual violence, etc., etc., it was decided to call it as a WPS framework. So there are two things. So if I could say, and after the approval or ratification of this resolution, all the countries, they decided to do their national documents. So US has a national document, which is the WPS document. France has its own. I don't know, Albania its own. It doesn't mean for you to be a country in conflict in order to have a WPS national um, action plan, because this is like the terms that they use, the acronym is the NAP. So all the countries, they have WPS NAP. Not all the countries, but those that have ratified the resolution. So I think that when you talk about the 2024, you refer to the US WPS
Yes, for
document.
sure.
Yeah.
And that's the one that I believe Pete
Yeah,
Hegseth
Pete Hegseth.
one
Yes.
has rescinded.
Mm.
So, I mean, no, I have no problem going back to the deep, dark depths of every document that started and, the Genesis document, that's fine. That's wonderful thing, wonderful to learn about. But I'll bet when Pete Hegseth put out his tweet that he had not read all this, and all those things don't necessarily register with him and his decision making on why he's doing that. So, um, I thought the idea was we were going to discuss the current state of affairs
Absolutely.
and what he was all mad about and why that resonates so much with somebody that is wanting the left feminine woke lean
Not
towards.
feminine, feminist, because you could also be a man and be a feminist. So,
Well, yeah, but
mm.
I mean, then why call it out as feminist?
Yeah, but feminist, because feminist is a kind of
We're going down
theory.
the wrong
So, yeah.
direction. We don't need to do that.
No,
Let's
let's go back to Pete Hegseth, because I was so surprised to read those three adjectives for WPS. So I don't know
Yeah.
why.
So, I went through and I read the December 30th, 2024 Secretary of State memo to all commanders, Department of Agencies and Field Activity Directors, blah blah blah. Department of Defense Women, Peace and Security Initiative Plan. That's the subject in this 15 horrible page document, and it's I understand 100% why he revoked this document. It's horribly written. It's so patronizing towards it. It mentions women and girls repeatedly. It uses language that makes women kind of victimized in this thing, and they can't be. They have no agency in their own correcting of their own situation. It's like, hey, here's this thing that we're going to do, and it's very, very not well formed on how we're going to do it. It has some key tasks on, we're going to define some processes, and we're going to look at how, these different events that go on. But it makes women seem like they're little kids and they can't take care of themselves. And I hate it. I hate whoever wrote this. And I know all the arguments are, oh, well, that's came out of the original, Trump um, presidency, but we can get to all that. But this document alone, I have no problem getting rid of it. It seems like all it does is put women in their place. And who wants that? I mean, well, not we, that is, I don't need a document like this to tell me to be good to all people. And I definitely want your side of it because I know you're going to talk about some weird stats that it's hard to argue with. But, other than that, getting rid of this document seems like the best step forward for women. Am I
Uh,
crazy?
no, no, and I might agree with you about victimizing women in the document. Like, to be frank, I haven't read the document that you're referring to. I read the thing of Trump in 2017, and
Yeah.
then and I also read some other because based on the act of Trump, there was the first like strategy of US on WPS, and it has the same vibe as you are describing. So it's the same vibe of considering women mostly as victims. So my problem with his tweet is, why couldn't he focus on this? Like, we're gonna do something who's talking about gender equality and maybe I don't know, promoting women's rights, but just destroying the document, because by destroying the documents, you go in the same direction, which he's a very conservative guy. So, I mean, it's going in his same direction on, I'm just getting rid of a document that focuses on women's rights and a document that is feminist or that is left wing. Like going on these kind of shortcuts, putting these adjectives like left and right without, I mean, I'm not saying that he should analyze this by himself. He's not an expert on this, but that's why he has a huge, I don't know, staff or
Yeah,
cabinet or whatever.
he's got
He,
one or two people
yes.
working for him. So,
To,
hey, can I, let me
uh,
devil's advocate real quick and undercut the idea of where this came from. So, if all of these small countries came together, or if the UN initiated this, and they obviously initiated it under like social pressure that's been rushing through, a lot of the world these days, it seems like seems like that all he's doing is just kind of the United States, because you were talking about when Trump kind of was part of this and how it initiated through that, and that seems like he just did that under social pressure. But I'm trying to figure out, how did it start in the beginning? So you're saying that it started as a UN movement.
Security Council
Did all these
resolution.
other documents, were they just as patriarchally worded as you were talking about? Because that seems like that's what led to it. So for me, I would examine, how did it start and what was the language in those first
Yeah.
documents, and how can that be improved? Because I don't know how to talk about something without talking about it. That just seems like the hardest thing to do.
So it started in 2000, and like now, I think that in October it will be like the 25th anniversary of this resolution. And so it started mostly, I think it was not a pressure just by civil society or NGOs. It was also, I think it was a need in order to work in the realm of peace and security from a gender perspective. So there was, how do you say, there was the need for a framework. Like you need to have a framework in order to do some things regarding women's rights. To be frank, I mean, you know that I'm very critic about all the existing conventions apart from the Istanbul Convention, which I think it's the best one. But it's the most recent one, so of course it's the best one because like a lot of work was put on this convention, and that's why many countries have withdrawn from it because they are feeling threatened by the feminist, I don't know, danger or apocalypse. Anyway, so
Feminist apocalypse. I think you might be onto something good there. You better copyright
so,
that.
so this document, so it's a good one as the first one, but there are a lot of weaknesses there, and there has been a lot of criticism, especially from feminist scholars, regarding what you were saying, like considering women just as victims, or what is called as gender essentialism. So you kind of attach women and men to their biology in the sense that women are good, or all women are good and all men are bad. So, and all women are victims and all men are
Oppressors.
violent. And
Yes. All
also,
men. I agree with all that, first off.
yeah, of course. And then the other idea is that one of the most important point of this resolution at that moment was to increase the number of women in the peace processes.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know that there are so, and not even at all, women participating in peace process after a conflict. And so the idea, again, one other criticism was why automatically I mean, that's needed to have more women in peace processes, because we have to see how to reconstruct the country, and this reconstruction to include the needs of everyone, not only a group. But attaching automatically women to peace, it means like only women are peaceful and men are just violent and want the war. So this kind of essentialism, like this gender essentialism, is one of the main criticism that has been done to, and also the name, like women, peace and security. Why not gender, peace and security?
That's
We're
kind of
not,
my point. It's
yeah.
hard to say let's not talk about something. Let's make everybody equal, but let's make those people that we're talking about really equal. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's a real term. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's not. So what is your thoughts on it? So you advocate having some type of policy, I take it, but just not this one, not the
The
WPS as it stands right now.
the first res
Or I guess all the what do you call that? The omnibus of other documents that exist.
The
Uh,
other documents were quite improved, and also were focusing on specific issues. For example, violence, sexual violence in conflict contexts, um, and also there are some weaknesses, because sometimes this violence is related just to women, but we know very well that we have also sexual violence against men or against LGBTIQ persons,
yeah,
because
this
it's
document
always,
doesn't talk about men at all.
yeah.
The
So,
current U.S. version. This is what I'm talking about.
and in most of the countries, it's the same as in US. So, um in the last document that I've been working, and it was a UN Women document about WPS in humanitarian action, we included also sexual violence against men, because this is the most hidden one. Like men, they do not go to report at all, uh, especially sexual violence, because of the shame, because of I mean, they will have a double or triple victimization if someone knows that they have been sexually violated. Like they are no men anymore. They are no considered as men anymore. So um, recently there have been a lot of reports about this. So that's why I was saying that we have this document, we can do it better. But if you just say that this is, oh, I was going to say a bad word, but this is like,
Bullshit.
yeah. So it doesn't help at all.
I see. I think it is bullshit. When I read it over, it almost has this line. It has like four different quadrants of women and girls, which it tells you every other sentence. But it talks about protecting women who are part of a war, women that are putting war upon others, and then U.S. personnel that are part of victims of war, and then U.S. women that are and girls that should not be inflicting violence upon women and girls. And it's just so single road, women and girls. It just sounds so strangely written, and I think it's definitely a very big political document, and it's doing exactly what you said. It's left, feminist, and woke, and it's unnecessarily left, unnecessarily feminist, and unnecessarily woke, in my opinion. So I get you that there's other things out there, and I know that you like to bring up the men's victimization, and it's clearly not, illustrated in this. So that gets me back to Pete Hegseth. Why do you hate so much his quote? Just because of the way he said it?
If it was a feminist document, it
What
would
does it
be
matter if
such
it's
a good, no, because the word has they are very important. Like if you were saying that this bullshit document is a feminist document, no, I'm sorry, I cannot agree with it.
well,
If
I'm
it
not saying anything. I'm saying that it should be
No,
put
not
out
you.
of
I
existence.
mean, I'm referring to Pete Hegseth.
I
So
don't
it's
think
not
that
a
I don't
feminist.
think that's his opinion on it either. I think his opinion is It is an interruption to good order and discipline, something I've heard him say, something I would say all day long, because that's what it is. It basically it ties commanders' hands on how to operate their command with the single-minded function of being good warfighters. And I watched it happen. So, we're talking about the 2016 document. I got out of the military in 2017. And on the way out of the military, I remember very specifically this training coming down. Hey, this is training that we're going to have to review. Every commander that I had in the two different commands I was at right before while it was being initiated was like, I'm not going to let this hijack my command, whatever that means. Meaning that they were not even pushing to actually work the plan. They were restricting and they were fighting it tooth and nail, meaning it wasn't actually going to be effective no matter what. So the fact that it's a bad document, and then you have people that are poorly committed to, following the rules of it makes no sense at all. So why not scrap it? I guess I'm just fixated on it right now, and I know there's other documents, and why not scrap them all and knock all those dominoes over? Because it seems simple enough to me to just apply all these principles to everybody.
Oh, but no, to
Except,
you.
except. I'm going to make some exceptions, and maybe this is something that needs to be figured out more completely. But the victimization pieces, I guess, we can continue to train ourselves not to be horrible to each other. I think we do that. Maybe we could do that more. But the victimization piece, I guess, if you're going to establish some law in order to support victims, I can clearly see how that would be beneficial. So that's I advocate for the rule of law to continue through, regardless of who is participating in it, or excuse me, regardless of which jurisdiction overlaps and falls over you. But they should all protect you, everybody.
Yeah, but you know that we need some laws and some strategies in order to function as societies because
That's
if
what I'm
you,
saying.
yeah, so that's why we need these documents that put the right name to the issue. For example, just I'm taking an example regarding the participation in the peace process. I remember this famous documentary about Liberia and the end of the civil war in Liberia. And I don't know, maybe you've seen the documentary, is a PBS documentary, if I'm not wrong, and it shows how it was a kind of, not a kind, but a movement from women, both Muslims and Catholics, who got together and they started a sex strike for days and days, and then they were just wearing in white and staying in the streets and asking to the two leaders, like the war leaders, or I don't know how to say, who were doing doing this civil war, to stop and to start the peace dialogue. So this became a huge thing, and some other neighbor countries, I think from Ghana, maybe I'm wrong, now I don't remember, they started a peace dialogue. But it was just some men. And then they went to this fantastic hotel in this neighbor country, and they were just spending days there. Normally, the civil war was continuing in Liberia. But these dudes, so these leaders of the war, they were just enjoying the spas and the pools and the everything in this
Oh, you
hotel.
want
So,
women to enjoy that as
no,
well.
no, no, no.
The peace process.
No. So this woman, Lei Mangobwe, I know her name very well. She got a Nobel Prize after this. So she organized also a protest in this country where the peace dialogue was going on, and they blocked the hotel in order not to leave anybody get out of it unless they started the dialogue. So. The idea is that you have these men, they are men in this sense. They might be also women and the opposite, but in this context, we have these men. And you don't have any representative from all the organizations or from all the religions who are doing all this fantastic movement for peace to get part in this peace table. Like, how can you reconstruct a country if you're completely leaving out half of the population and even more? So that was the idea, I think, to have a framework about women, peace, and security. Then it was up to each country in order to adapt it. And some countries, you know what they did? They just said that, okay, we will increase the number of women in the police forces or in the armed forces. That would be fantastic, but it doesn't change anything in reality if you just put some more women in the police force or in the armed forces. So it doesn't change, the root of the problem. Like
Yeah.
if there is violence, why there is violence?
So I guess if I was to play devil's advocate for that argument, which I love doing, um, so we just talked about the United States failing to follow through. Now you're talking about a country that is far less developed, we'll say, far less financially stable, and far more inclined to be governed by men. Let's call a spade a spade. Um, and they're failing to comply with the rules. Yeah, so that all kind of
Oh,
that
but
makes me wonder. Go
they
ahead.
had a woman president after that.
And that's great, and that's
Yeah.
fantastic, as you would say.
So yes, that's fantastic, as I
I,
would say.
but I guess the argument is that you're saying that having just a few more women in the police and in the military, that's not effective. I guess that's all part of the progression. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly. It's an
Yes.
evolution, so it's evolving towards exactly what I think you want it to happen. It's just not
Yes.
evolving fast enough for us, right?
No,
I
but
guess that's,
it's different to just increase the number of women.
well, sure.
But if these women behave in a way, and I will say a word that you don't like, in a very patriarchal way and oppressing way, and they are as violent and as all the other people, it doesn't mean anything.
Or that's just proof that women are just as capable of being bad leaders as men
Of
are.
course, of
Well, yeah.
course.
So,
And you know that I mean, I believe this. It's not because you have a vagina that you're perfect, not at all. Like, you might be, I mean, Margaret Thatcher, she was not a feminist and
oh,
she was so much oppressing women's rights.
why?
Why, why?
Nothing. I'm sorry. Keep going. So I guess so you're saying that because as soon as are you suggesting as soon as women are brought into the peacemaking fold that they're going to turn to be evil men too, or what was your point?
No, no, my point is that you have to make some meaningful changes in the process,
Such as.
such as if you have NGOs, for example, now in Ukraine, another example.
Yes.
What?
Keep going.
I cannot talk about the US. I don't know US, but Women, Peace and Security is a global document, so we're talking about, I mean,
No,
I'm
no, no,
talking
no,
about
no,
other
no,
countries,
no.
yeah.
I'm not.
Mm.
My hesitation is not U.S. based, but keep going.
Okay, so in Ukraine, because it's a country in conflict now,
Yeah, sure
and
is.
uh, there are so many NGOs who are dealing with a lot of issues that we don't see in the media because maybe they are considered as less important. You don't see, you haven't seen any woman in the few peace dialogue that has existed, or no representation of these NGOs who are dealing every day with what's going on in the country. So that's what I call a kind of a meaningful participation, not just to have women there for their face, but to have women who know
Yeah,
the issues.
Ukraine is a bad example because if you let all the women leave the country during time of war, how are you going to advocate having women as leaders during the time of war? That's
There are
illogical.
there are some NGOs who are doing a fantastic job even in that.
I'm sure there are.
Yes. So, but they are nowhere. I mean, I'm not talking about because there is no peace dialogue, but even in participating in politics or how to in the decision making, they are not there. Oh, we were talking about participation of women. I mean, I could bring some other examples. For example, in Latin America, we have two countries who had women in the peace table, but with very different outcomes, Colombia and Ecuador. So in Colombia, because women were participating in all the peace dialogue after the conflict with the FARC, so there were a lot of NGOs that were talking about women's rights and gender issues in everyday life, and so a lot of good policies were approved. I mean, we're not talking about the implementation. I don't know what happened, but I'm just talking about these policies.
Gotcha.
In Ecuador, we had a completely different situation. There were a lot of women in the table, but no discussion about gender issues or what was going on in the everyday life. So nothing changed. So you may have women, but it doesn't mean that the change will be there. So this is the criticism, the feminist criticism to the WPS document, the original one of the 2000, that not automatically having women in the table means that everything will be perfect. No. So
Well,
but
yeah.
I'm not sure that this was the idea of Pete Hegseth when he decided to get rid of this document. So that's my problem.
Well, see, that problem I think is your self-made problem because everybody knows that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and at this point, if Pete Hegseth is functioning as the enemy of your enemy, then he is your friend.
No,
Has to be. This is logic.
no, no, because I mean, just saying, like, I have this issue with not even with the left wing, but with saying that this document is a feminist document. Mm, no.
Okay, well, that's interesting. But you still want the same, or not the same ends. You want at least this to go away. I want it to go away. He wants it to go away. We should
I
all be.
want it to be better, not to
Well,
go
yeah, we
away.
all want things to be better. That's for sure. I want that too.
I'm not sure that he's really like not sleeping at night and thinking about how to do WPS better. So,
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I said, I think all he's worried about is making the military lethal, and that's good and bad. It is what it is. I agree with it in a lot of ways, but then again, once you do that, you should have a fundamental idea that you're removing the military from the political decision making because that's not what a military should be for. But that's a topic for another day.
but do you think that this document makes the military less lethal?
Absolutely.
Why?
I said that, but I'll say it again.
Mm.
It makes individuals concentrate on the wrong thing during their day to day getting their job done day to day. If you're putting something like this massive onto every individual and every individual commander and all the other personnel in between, um, and you have a work week. We'll say your work week 5 days. You go to work. Like every other person in the military, unless you're on deployment. And if this is taking up 1 or even 2 days a week, I mean, how ineffective are you at your job?
But this is not about US military. This is, I mean, a proper
Military
functioning.
Department of Defense, all the agencies that are listed. I'm from the memo to senior Pentagon leadership and commanders and combatants and defense agencies and field activity directors. That is exactly what that means. All those people are spending their work weeks divided on all the tasks they need to accomplish. Um, Living their lives in between those moments and then having to adhere to plans like this that distract from what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, meaning they're not professionally developing as much, they're not becoming more cohesive as team leaders as much, they're not spending as much time on at their field getting as good as they can be in order to help the total team. I mean, this affects one country significantly
But
across.
this,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I mean, this is supposed to be a document that's because US it's not a country in conflict. So in the context of US, this should be a document that helps the or allows the US military um, and I don't know all the agencies that you were mentioning. I mean, because I don't know them well, in order to support countries in conflict where you are participating. But when you are, for example, I don't know, in the framework of the NATO operations. Let's take the example of the KFOR in Kosovo, which is an ongoing operation of NATO. In this case, it means that NATO there in this peacekeeping operation in Kosovo, they also have to be aware of the gender dynamics. For example, the sexual violence against women or against men or so this is it like to it's for the reconstruction for the protection of course.
You're actually furthering my point. You're right.
Hmm.
So when I say the U.S. military, let's call it maybe the world police. I don't know, but we'll say the country that interacts with every other country to some level on a day-to-day basis. So those day-to-day interactions, and I'm not talking about just U.S. military sitting around in America. I'm talking about everybody who's forward deployed, every ambassador who is engaging, every private who is working on some military base in a foreign land who's engaging at some level with all these other foreign countries, NATO, UN, and they're taking their time away from those interactions. And so you're looking at this document and you think that it actually does something. We all, both of us, brought up examples of the fact that it doesn't really do anything. It fails in the fact that it's not being followed by the people that agree to it. So it's a failing document already, but you have an idea that this document exists and people are reading it and that's stopping some type of, rapey behavior, if whatever, anything that is, well, okay, that's what you just made it sound like. You think that this document is changing how the Americans working around the world are interacting. I'm just saying that it's taking away from that time of interaction and it's not changing any real behavior. Well, maybe some education. I'm sure people need to be reminded of that, um, unfortunately. But other than
uh,
that, it's not like it's a police document. Nobody's like walking around following these rules on the day-to-day basis.
which I think it's normal because that would be a loss of time for everyone in order to read the document all the day but there
Exactement.
is yes but there should be a person there. For example, NATO, they have the gender advisors that uh, normally they should do this job in order to see how the gender perspective, and I'm not going in detail what does it mean because it would take
Yeah.
2 days, um, is it applied or how people are aware of it or the to see a little bit. I'm just saying again for the KFOR in Kosovo. Um, you have this peace force there, so maybe they should be a little bit aware of the cultural issues in this country, including also gender, which is part of the. So this is what WPS should mean or means. Then I don't know how it is implemented, but it's better to have a framework in place that allow you to also be aware about gender. It doesn't mean that every soldier or every officer should have the document in hand every day.
No, I didn't. Nobody said that.
No, no, in the sense of I'm making it kind of a caricatural, but it also allows to have specific programs uh, projects to have some new funds in order to, I don't know, support the organizations in a small village in, I don't know, in Kosovo again, because there is no ongoing conflict, but you have to help these people reconstruct and after the war, etc., etc. So that's what this document
Okay.
has.
So
That's the objective. I
I
mean,
totally agree. They empower the ability to set up funding streams to different organizations, like
you said it so better than me.
women to women organizations. I don't. You speak like 7 or 20 languages. Leave me alone. I'm struggling with this one. Um, I do see. I see the benefit of that. It does open up funding opportunities. Well, then, and so I will go back to what I said already. We both agree it should be scrapped, overhaul, redrawn. But what it is garbage. So that's my only observation is that after reading it, it just seems I don't know how to argue for women. Don't get me wrong. I like women. I like people. So arguing for a particular part of an organization, I have no problem doing it. But I feel like that when I try to argue for women's rights, it sounds like I'm not, even though I am. And it feels like as soon as I say something about women's rights to like, people like you, left feminine woke-ish, leaning people, I feel like
No,
I'm going to get told I'm doing it wrong. So I generally kind of back out from trying to
have
understand.
I ever done it?
Oh my God. Let me tell you, young lady, I'm just
No, you said left wing and feminist and woke. I say that I'm feminist person, then the rest may come and go, but it's like feminism. So,
gotcha. So I
uh,
don't,
now just wanted to say something. Um, so you, oh, I lost it. You were saying something, and I had the opposite argument, and it was so good, and I just forgot it now.
it's
Anyway,
just,
no, I just wanted to mention that. I mean, I really have to go through the US document, and I have no doubt that it might be very superficial, because in many countries you have the national documents, the WPS documents, sometimes are very superficial. Um, it depends on the how serious the country is really about implementing this document, or if they just adopted it because okay, it looks fancy, the pink washing thing that we were mentioning yesterday. So yeah, let's talk
yeah.
about feminism because it's really fancy now. So let's adopt this document, etc., etc. So, which is another problem for me because it kind of stole all the work from a feminist perspective in the sense to change something meaningfully and not just because you have a law there or you have a document there.
So this,
Um,
this, not to jump in, but you reminded me, in doing some reading for this, I came across the 2020 NATO policy, Women, Peace and Security,
uh-uh.
and reading this compared to the U.S. memo, the difference is hilarious. And I'm going to be extraordinarily satirical, um, in my investigation into the 2024 NATO policy. So it has some wonderful images of women, and they are very intelligent and hardworking women. You can tell by all the poses they're in. And they're all, wonderfully attractive, and blue eyes, and they're in the field, and they're doing hardcore
What
women
the
stuff.
hell?
And I'm reading the integration across three core tasks in all this document. It's the NATO document. It is such a propaganda piece, and I understand it's doing exactly what you want it to do. It's a recruitment tool to have women join NATO. It literally says that, and it says, "Come and join us, be part of this." But it seems like a brainwashing tool, not to sound, hey, I love you, NATO guys. Don't get me wrong. It is well done. I will tell you that the quality of this document is top
Is
drawer.
it better than the US one?
With one exception, the last slide looks just like a swastika, and I don't understand why they would throw that in there. Um,
I have to check this.
really weird. But anyway, so this document, it's a recruiting tool for women to join NATO, and I think it's so well done, but it's so kind of like Hollywood well done, and some of the stated goals are just so bland. Um, we're going to integrate, work hard, and do good stuff. I mean, it's a recruiting tool.
Mm.
So
I
I
think
guess
that,
if anything, WPS is it's like I don't want to say any. It's not. I'm not saying it in a negative way, but it is just a call for women, call it arms. For women to come and join them, the political part of society. I don't even know how to say that well.
but yeah, I mean, for NATO, they have a lot of work to do yet. Still, how do you say it, regarding WPS? But the most positive thing I think regarding WPS is there is a yearly report of the UN Secretary General,
Mm.
um, which actually is one of my favorite politicians,
Who's
or
that?
I don't know, Antonio Guterres,
Mm.
apart from the fact that he's Portuguese and he was this is his second mandate, and his reports, the report that is released from the UNSG regarding WPS, it's a fantastic document, and I think that it shows that you can really do a good document and also some good work if you are seriously involved in the process, because it kind of corrects all the failure of the document, the
Oh yeah.
WPS, and also it has pushed for a lot of funds from United Arab Emirates or from Australia or from like countries in all the world, especially regarding the humanitarian aid, and especially for sexual violence, for example, or for uh, um, increasing the participation of men and boys in gender equality activities, or for working with local communities. So not going from the fancy capital, European capital, and give some directives and say, oh, I'm right because I'm coming from Paris. So of course that I'm right, but really working with the local
With
NGOs.
reason to be right, though. Let's be fair.
I'm not sure. No, come on. Let's not boost their ego more
Yeah.
than it is. So this document of the UNSG, it's a really good one. So I just wanted to say it because, when you find something that is really useful, and let's just mention it in all these kind of a little bit more or less superficial documents, this is,
Good grounding document. That's
yeah.
something I'll have to look more into. But I mean, does it actually have where's it going? Is it doing something? Is it doing good work other than educating you on strong
It's,
policies?
no, it gives a lot of, it gives a lot. I mean, that UN has not such a huge power in order to, because you cannot put sanction to countries if they are not complying with a specific document,
Yeah,
a specific framework or convention or whatever. Like most of the countries, they have ratified conventions against torture or convention for the women's rights, but we know what's the reality. So I mean, UN cannot really put sanctions. So, but there are a lot of, in this document, you find specific examples highlighting what are the problems in specific countries and what can be done.
gotcha.
So we have all these funds, which are decreasing, unfortunately, but let's put these funds in
Absolutely.
solving these specific problems. So this, I think, it's the best thing of these reports.
Maybe. I like the bottom up approach. That's actually always seems to be more beneficial, but it's it's hard to rationalize to everybody how you select those individual groups that get benefited, and that always gets corrupted. And you know, it's a great idea. I think it's better than the idea of, hey, let's set a policy that somehow affects everybody that doesn't really do anything but slow and stifle. So maybe we should just give out those Easter egg benefits periodically. I don't know. I like it.
I don't know.
I like it a lot. Well, I don't know what else to say about this other than I I love the way you continue to bring up men and boys, and you refuse to say women and girls, and you're the feminist advocate. It seems like you're trying to use this power suggestion thing that they talk about. That's your tool of advocacy is to do that, and it's interesting. I feel like I'm getting
No, but
brain.
you know that there are two things that I believe, and you know them very well. Uh, First is I believe that feminism is against any kind of injustice, so not only against women. I could say why women first because of all the centuries of inequality, etc., etc. But it doesn't mean that it's only women. So on the other is that I don't believe that there is this, as I said, gender essentialism, like women are perfect and men are the worst. Not at all. So that's it.
Hmm, interesting. Cool. Well, that was an interesting discussion. I would be interested to know what other questions come out of this because I don't know what the best questions to ask in this topic is. For me, it was an evaluation exercise in this particular piece of writing, and I found that it was weak. You found that it was weak. I don't know where to go from there.
Should we bet that it will be a new US document on WPS? I don't know, in 6 months or no?
Shall we bet? Well, that would be kind of a fool's bet because we know the check's in the mail. You
Yeah.
know, the pendulum was going to fall and then it's going to come back. And hopefully it doesn't destroy too many on its way across the universe. I don't know. But anyway, I'm glad good old Pete has eradicated this document. I'm happy for that. After reading it, I don't know why somebody would sign their name to it. So God forbid. Anyway,
I'm not glad that he did it, but anyway.
but you like the some of the results.
I would like for him to work on improving it.
Hmm. It's nice hair though. Gotta admit that. It's a good looking guy. All right.
Not my type.
Talk to you later.
See you next time.